one and only Peter Vecsey. Appreciate your time, Peter. How are
the
you?
one and only. There are a lot of people that are glad there was only one and only.
How's your week been? And have you been watching some of the latest NBA, or what have you been up to lately?
My life is a retired life, and I watch. I gotta warn you. I watch very few NBA games, and I did go to the All-Star game, but I did not attend a single function for many reasons we can get into later. But I did do 4 podcasts while I was there, and that's why I really went. And I did podcasts with George Gervin, Bob McAdoo, Dominique Wilkins, and Michael Ray Richardson. So I'm very happy with the way they turned out.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I did catch a little bit. Was retweeted on your account, your Hoop du Jour.
Well, you can find them on Spotify and YouTube. YouTube, you can watch them starting Monday on YouTube.
Okay. Yep. Perfect. And I appreciate you wearing the Outback hat.
Yes.
Was that from a friend? Because I didn't send you that.
I'm a regular wearer of Australian hats. There's a place called the Saddlery where I live in Saratoga Springs that sells the man is from New Zealand, I believe, but he could be from Australia, but I think New Zealand. He was a policeman there. And anyway, he owns this place and he sells a lot of Australian stuff, and they're all overpriced, but the hats aren't. The hats are great.
As long as they're authentic, Peter, because there is only one Peter and you're authentic. So why don't you talk to me a little bit about your career, your motivation throughout your career? A lot of players' motivation was to win championships and to also get paid well. Throughout your Hall of Fame career, Peter, what was your motivation?
Right from the start, as soon as I actually decided that I wanted to be a writer and I could do the job, I just set several goals for myself and carried that through my whole career, and that was to illuminate stuff, give the stories behind the scenes that the people don't normally get, to be entertaining, and also to be totally honest. And I believe I carried through on all 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anyone could doubt that as well. If I was to say to you the 1990 New York Knicks, the 90's New York Knicks, what are some first words that come to your mind?
The first words that come to my mind are 1970 and 1973. Which is when the last time that the Knicks won championships, the only 2 times they won championships. They went to the finals twice in the 90's, 94 and 99, and should have actually won in 94. They had Houston down 3-2 going back to Houston. They blew game 6, and I blamed it at that time. I was on NBC at the time, and at halftime of that game, I still remember distinctly, pleading with Pat Riley to play his bench the way the Rockets were playing their bench, and he didn't do it, and so they lost game 6, and then game went down to the wire in game 7, and John Starks and Pat Riley will has admitted this, that he never should have left Starks in as long as he did, because he just kept shooting and he kept missing, and both games were there for the taking, but game 6 they should have won without any problem.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. That's synonymous, and you do look back on those years, and how close the New York Knicks got, and I think that's why a lot of fans still think so fondly of the team. But also the team had a lot of character, Peter, and what made that team in the 90's, the Knicks special. They were trendsetters in a lot of ways.
Well, they also had a lot of characters. But I give Pat Riley total. He deserves the credit. I mean, he does. When he came there, he brought his stoicism and his his will to win, and he refused to take any bullshit from the players or from the opponents. And so they really adopted his personality. And I maintain that to be judged as a great coach in the NBA, you have to have had two teams, at least minimum two teams, taking them to the finals, or at least becoming really, really good teams over a span of time. And Riley not only did that with the Lakers and then the Knicks. No, he didn't win a championship, but he got them right into position for many of those years, if not for a guy named Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, of course. But he deserves a lot of credit because he changed his style, and that's another mark of a great coach. He was playing the Showtime in LA because that's what the owner Jerry Buss demanded. And and they had a run and stun team. And then he comes to New York, and now he's got to change the whole philosophy, and he did. Now they become a team that had to match up against Indiana, which was a really tough team, and Chicago, really rough team, and the Pistons, really tough team. Although they were basically finished in the in the early 90's, but after they won their second title. But that was the way to play in those days. If you wanted to win big, you had to play tough, and or as we used to say in the Army, you had to have the spirit of the bayonet fighter. And they had it. And then he brought in guys. He and management brought in guys that fit that mold. They made the trade earlier for Cartwright to the Bulls for Oakley. They discovered Anthony Mason. Their guards were, they brought in veteran guards like Derek Harper and Rivers, who were, really tough guys playing their position. And then of course you had Ewing, who was, he wasn't a fighter per se, but he was a tough guy. And so that's the way they were. That was Riley.
Yeah. So they were very driven. They were a reflection of their coach.
Yes.
Saying
you put it much better than I did. Thank you.
Yeah. No, you did as well, eloquently. But then is Pat Riley the reason the Knicks haven't been able to win since? What there's obviously many factors, but what's the main reasons the New York Knicks have not been able to be successful since this era? Yeah,
I mean, we could go in many different areas on that, many different ways, but look, we all jumped on Pat Riley for leaving the team by fax, putting in his resignation by fax, and we called him a lot of names, and Miami paid heavily for it, the draft pick and money, but they got the man that they wanted, Pat Riley, and he wanted power, and Miami gave it to him. And Dave Checketts, who was the president at that time, I remember him telling me in Orlando during the season, during Riley's last season, where we were at a game, I think it was just a regular season game, and he told me, he was in a huff, and he told me that there's no way I'm giving that fucking guy the power that he wants, And so actually, he might not have said that curse word because he's a Mormon. I might have just said that, but I did say that. But that was it. He wanted power. He wanted a higher title besides coach, a co-title, and he wanted to be in on the command decisions, and he also asked for a piece of the team. Yep. None of that was forthcoming, and so he had a year left on his contract, and he bailed. He was ahead of the players. Players today, that's what they do. They make themselves undesirable for the team, and he just quit on them. So having said all that, had they given him the power, the Knicks definitely would have won championships. Because look what he did in Miami. They won championships. You know, he was able to use his personality and his charisma and his attitude and everything to attract free agents. And he made excellent trades. He was able to manipulate the roster. And even since then, when he stopped coaching, you know, he brought in Eric Spoelstra, who everybody was like, "What? Are you serious? How come Bob McAdoo, who had been his assistant and played for him with the Lakers, how come he didn't get the job?" I think McAdoo would like to know that also. But Spoelstra's, you know, won 3 championships since. He's a terrific coach. He's there 14 years, longest reign in the NBA, next to Popovich, and you know, very, very good coach. And so Riley is just known how to renovate rosters, and when things go wrong, when he gives a bad contract, which he has done, absolutely, he makes the change. He alters what happened. So, yeah, I mean, every time you think of the Knicks, you got to wonder, you know, how many titles they would have won had he stayed. I mean, given what he wanted. You know, James Dolan was then put in. He became the owner at that time, and you know, he was in on that decision with Checkers. Obviously, Checkers didn't own the team, and so, you know, then ever since, James Dolan's been making tremendous investments in players and coaches and general managers and everything, and lawsuits and everything. But you know, most of the decisions have been really bad. And continues to do it, even up until their last hirings. You know, I'm not writing anymore, but I thought hiring Thibodeau was a terrible decision. You know, hiring another agent to run the team. My God, I mean, why would you give it to that? Why would you give it to a guy, Leon Rose, a guy who, first of all, who was representing LeBron James when he was a free agent? The Knicks couldn't get anywhere. They got nowhere talking to him. Now you're going to hire the guy who was behind that. Not that LeBron didn't make his own decision, but, you know, how can you bring that guy in? My God, bring somebody with some attachment to the team who's got some experience. They're big on no experience, you know, giving Phil Jackson the job. Yeah, hire him as a coach. That makes sense. Why would you give him a job as a general manager? No experience. Why would you let him learn on the job? It's like the Knicks, you know, one of the probably the most, you know, worth the most money of any franchise in the NBA. Why would you let people learn on the job? You know, there's so many. I don't. We could go off on James Dolan forever, but he just keeps making the same mistake over and over again. Yeah,
you must have seen my questions, Peter, because you hit on about 3 or 4 of them in that one block. But really? I want to touch a little bit more on that later. But you know, in terms of the 90s Knicks, you know, Patrick Ewing was central to that. How underappreciated was Patrick Ewing and that team, you know, at that present day?
I don't believe he was underappreciated. Look, he won every award possible, basically. You know, he top 50 player, top 75 player. You know, he'd make all league. Not always first team, but he'd make all league. He got paid more than anybody. If anything, I don't think he got enough discredit for what was going on. You know, there were games that he blew. And I remember, I won't be able to give you the year, but I remember I'd switch seats. I usually sat on the sideline, and I switched seats. I was sitting with my son under the basket against Indiana, and it was the end of the game, and he had an open layup. He had to take a couple steps to get to the hoop, but he misjudged the steps, and he blew the layup and blew the series. And, you know, and Indiana went, I guess that Indiana went to the finals. That was, what year was that? 2001, 2000? I'm not sure. Anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. So there were times where I didn't think he did enough. I think, you know, a lot of his teammates has gotten on him since then because, you know, he didn't really share any of the accolades with them, or, I know Oakley's made a big deal about that, but Oakley's tough to get along with anyway for anybody. Even though he and I have had a great relationship over the years, he's a different dude. And, what he says now about Patrick and other players on the team, some of it you just got to shake your head. Every year Patrick Ewing would predict that we're going to beat the Bulls and we're going to win and we're going to do this, and then they don't. After a while it gets old. Maybe you should just shut up.
Yeah, and his feud with he put out a book, obviously, Charles Oakley. Talking about what's your thoughts on his relationship with James Dolan and that situation.
Like I said, Oakley is difficult to get along with. He's a different breed. And again, we got along great over the years, but I understand, how he gets in trouble. Right before that incident, I'd say a month or two before that incident that happened at the Garden with the owner, he and I were talking, and he said, "Yeah, we got to go to a game together. Let's go to a Knicks game together." And I said, "No, Charles, I don't think that'd be a good idea for me and you to be at a Knicks game together." I said, well, that's going to amount to trouble. Well, he got into trouble on his own. And I don't know. I don't really know what happened in that situation, but I know Oak doesn't back down or back up. And he might have been saying stuff to Dolan. I don't know. I don't know who paid for the seats, whose seats they were. But, Dolan has overreacted to fans getting on him. They want the fans to pay all that money, but they don't want the fans yelling at the owner. So I don't know.
Yeah.
No insight on that one, except clashing personalities, or maybe they're the same kind of personalities.
Yeah, some strong personalities, absolutely. And you touched on Pat and Oak as well. I think that hits home to Knicks fans a lot more to see those two at this stage of their life and their career, have that animosity, coming from Charles in his book as well. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, again, Charles is Charles. He's always been outspoken. He was one of the guys I would always go to when I was working at NBC, and I'd be sent up to the Knicks training camp to interview people, or after a game or whatever. I would always go to him because I know he would say what's on his mind. He's not going to hold back. Problem is, he's difficult to understand. So he wasn't always coherent or legible, whatever I want to say. But look, I didn't even read the book. I've read excerpts from the book. To me, I might have heard one anecdote that I hadn't heard before, but for the most part, everything that was in there about his fights and all that, I've written all that. I wrote it all after I retired. I was working for Patreon. It was Patreon, and I wrote a whole column on Oakley and all those fights. So, unfortunately, about 7 people read Patreon, but he had given me all that stuff before. So, and maybe in more depth, because a lot of stuff that he told me and I wrote about, I didn't read in the papers in the excerpts. But he's a fighter. He likes to get physical with people. It's come back to bite him too, because he's gotten into fights. In a casino, I remember for sure in Vegas, he got beat up by a number of security people. They put him in the hospital for a long time. He was an assistant coach with, I guess, Charlotte. It had to be Charlotte because that's his boy Jordan owned it. So he was an assistant coach, and he was in such bad shape, he never went back to the sidelines. He couldn't. They put him in the hospital. They almost paralyzed him, and so he gets into stuff, and sometimes he can't get out of it. You got to know your limits, and I don't think Charles does.
Yeah. And he also mentioned in his book about LeBron James, and that after that incident at the Garden, he spoke to LeBron, said Dolan wouldn't shake my hand. LeBron said that's why I'm never going to New York. You think James Dolan is a central figure to free agents turning a blind eye to the Knicks?
Well, LeBron, again, maybe that's why he initially really didn't give the Knicks much of a chance when they went out there to Cleveland, and he brought in, I think, 6 teams to interview him, Riley being the one that won it. But, I talked to people who were in that room when LeBron talked to the Knicks, and one guy said to me that I noticed he wasn't even paying attention to what we were saying. Yeah, I noticed it right away. We had no shot, and we were selling him on the wrong thing anyway. The Knicks were trying to sell him on how much playing in New York would do for him financially and stuff. LeBron didn't need to hear that shit. Are you kidding me? So the Knicks, brought in some very weak people to try to recruit him, and then once the interview was over, like I said, did not last long at all. And then Dolan tried to send Isaiah Thomas back to Cleveland through Rose, current general manager. He sent him back to Cleveland to try to get LeBron to talk to him one-on-one. And Rose and or LeBron said not happening. So that was a waste. It didn't happen. So for LeBron to say it now, I don't even, would the Knicks really want LeBron now? He's doing nothing for the Lakers, and he's at the end of the trail. He's one injury away from it being all over, and so really, who cares what LeBron thinks?
A lot of fans would love to see Patrick Ewing back with the organization. Dolan's taking care of Allen Houston, Larry Johnson, John Starks, Latrell Sprewell. Would you like to see? Do you think Patrick Ewing deserves a job with the Knicks one day?
Well, most of those guys you talked about, they're only doing community service. Allen Houston's the only one that is in management. He's been in management for a long time. And, he's the kind of guy that Dolan wants around for sure. He doesn't stir up any problems. The other guys, if you look through the archives, Larry Johnson is basically a hoodlum. And so, what can I say? Why he wants him around? And Sprewell, I remember, after he was through with the Knicks, and he was playing for whatever team, I don't even remember which team he was playing for, and he was cursing out Dolan sitting at courtside during the game. Nobody stepped up except one assistant coach whose name's going to slip me. One assistant coach got up and said something to Sprewell during that. So this is the guy that Dolan wants back with him. He's weird, He's weird. No, as far as Ewing goes, I don't think there's a job there for him. Look, Georgetown is bringing him back from what I read, and I think that's great. That's tremendous allegiance to a guy who put Georgetown on the top of the basketball map. So I'm all for that. And when it's all over, he'll probably be able to get an assistance coach again in the NBA somewhere. But if not, I don't think we're going to have any fund me pages for Patrick.
Yeah. And Peter, when you did receive your Kurt Gowdy Award, I remember you saying that you feel like at the time Mike Breen was someone deserving. And let's fast forward to today. We have both Mike Breen and Walt Clyde Frazier, recently the recipient of the Kurt Gowdy Award. So joining yourself, what are your thoughts on that team?
Well, look, I'm all for those guys getting awards. Mike Breen is somebody I've known since he was at Fordham College, and I used to do his radio show. I would go up to the Bronx at midnight on a Sunday night. I would do his show. Mike K and Mike Breen did a show together, and so ever since we've been really close. I helped Mike K get his first job in the business with the Post, and I when NBC came and asked me about Mike Breen, I absolutely endorsed him. And neither one of them have forgotten it. And so I'm really glad. I'm glad for Frazier because I really like the guy. And, I like listening to him. His rhyming can get annoying, but as far as the award goes, I auctioned off my award years ago. I have no use for the Hall of Fame in many different areas. The people they put in are so political, and it's a joke. So many. We could get into it on every level. How they how they don't put some people in, they put other people in, other people pay their way in. Nike gets in there, their owner, their executives get in there because they paid. Come on, man, it's a joke. But I understand everybody wants to be in it. I don't care to be in it personally. And like I said, I auctioned it off, and I think whatever I got, I think it was under it. I don't know. It was under $1,000, and I think it was. They paid like, let's say it was $999. They paid $998 too much. I've always felt that the right people, the people I care about, mostly the fans, mostly readers or viewers, they've always given me strong support, and I don't care what a Jerry Colangelo or people who work for the Hall of Fame care about me or what they do. They just, again, they're so stupid in so many areas. One of the latest ones is, for years I've been saying that Casey Jones deserved to be in as a head coach. You look at his percentage, and one of the highest percentages in basketball, right? Now he goes right back to what I told you initially. Took the Washington Bullets to the finals in '75, right? Takes the Celtics to 2 championships, right? His percentage is very, very high. He's not in the Hall of Fame as a coach. You tell me, what the hell? So then they have a vote. They have 45 coaches voting for the top 15 coaches of all time. That came out recently. A lot wrong with that. Also, some of the top 15 absolutely do not deserve to be on that list. But Casey Jones is on the list. So he makes the top 15 coaches, but he doesn't make the Hall of Fame. I mean, that tells you everything about those people. They're incompetent. They're absolutely incompetent.
Yeah, and everyone wants to be in it, obviously, so that's probably their argument.
No, of course people want, because that's the shrine. But the NBA should be running it instead of giving, putting people in the Hall of Fame like Dino Raja, and stuff like that. Guys like, are you kidding me? Pretty next thing they're gonna do, they're gonna put Stephon Marbury in because he did so well in China. Come on. Get the NBA, the right NBA people into this, or the NBA should take it over, but they won't. It's too late now.
Speaking of picking and choosing, Peter, give us some thoughts on the Last Dance documentary, because I got some things to add in terms of some omissions. Luke Longley was a noticeable omission from that documentary, and he went and created his own documentary down here in Australia, the missing chapter, essentially. I don't know if you've had a chance to hear about that or see that.
Oh yeah, I've heard about it. I have not watched it. I watched too much of Jordan's documentary because there's just so much, and Luke Longley's a perfect example. There's so much was left out of that, and so many untruths were told. I'm not really going to get into much of what I know about that, because if I ever finish my stupid book, I'll put it in there. But Jordan contradicted himself a number of times. Took credit for stuff that he had no reason to take credit for. It's not true, and so they weren't going to have me in that documentary, but because of what I would say. But I wouldn't have done it anyway, because I know what I would have said would never have made the documentary. So why would I have wasted my time? and I wasn't going to give it away anyway. But I know a lot of stuff about Jordan that remains to be written and said.
What do you feel like was the closest year outside of the 94, obviously, that the Knicks had the chance to win? Because the well-documented suspensions in 97 against Miami could have been that year for the Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, I can't pin it down for you which year was, closest. They were close every year. They had a team that was put together to win it all. Stuff happens, whether it's a fight in Miami and people get suspended, or or it's Michael Jordan just taking over a game at the most crucial part and winning it, or an injury, or whatever. It's Pat Riley making a mistake in 94, as I said in Game 6. Not playing Rolando Blackman in that 94 series also. And he admits he made a mistake there too. Why wouldn't you have played him? I mean, Rolando Blackman versus Starks?
Go to your bench.
My God.
You can admit that now. It's been so long. Not many coaches do go back and admit, though, on record.
Yes. He admitted it quite a while ago, and I give him credit for that. He and I have had our problems over the years. We started out really well, had a great relationship when he was with the Lakers, worked together at NBC, got into it at times when he coached the Knicks. And then in Miami and stuff, I've just come to recognize him for the talent that he has in many different areas, and I like him, and I like him a lot.
The way the game's going, it's done a complete 180 with that situation with the fights.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this without even thinking about it. I'm very glad they cracked down on what was going on in the 90's. And, there was those guys like Lambeer and people like him, they could have been put in jail for, playing the kind of defense that they played, undercutting people in the air. And, usually the superstars too, going after Bird, going after Jordan. I'm glad that changed, but now they've gone, they've taken it too far the other way. It's all about offense. People say, oh yeah, we don't have to watch the 90, 89 games anymore. Now 127, So they've just gone. They've gone too far. Instead of a 180, they should have done about a 120. And you can still have physical play, but the dirty play, I mean, again, even today, like that kid Grayson who didn't undercut, but he that dirty foul he had on what's his name for the Bulls, played for the Lakers. I can't think of his name, but that they showed it last night. Actually, I was watching that game and they showed it, and he didn't foul him badly with one hand, the left, but then he fouled him with the right too, and dragged him down, undercut him, and he broke his wrist. The kid broke his wrist. So, 1 game suspension. Well, what the hell? Really? Guy who's going to be out 7-8 weeks, and he gets a 1 game suspension? That's where you need to crack down, and you'd end that stuff. That kid knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. He was going to hit him twice. Man.
Yeah. So that's why he keeps doing it.
Well, I don't know. Look, he did it in college, but I think that was his first incident as a pro. I'm not going to say he's a repeat offender because I haven't seen that. But, in that situation, if you play the game of basketball, you need to penalize, punish a player who knocks a guy who's airborne to the ground like that. And 1 game is a joke. I've used that a lot tonight. A joke.
Yep. And we talked about free agency, Peter, but trades. The Knicks have had some excellent trades in the franchise history and some horrible trades. And what's one of the best trades for the Knicks that they pulled off and the worst?
You can't ask me questions like that. That's too much to think about. If you get specific with me, I can help you. But trades. Everybody's made bad trades. Jerry West has made bad trades. Red Auerbach has made bad trades. He's made bad draft picks. Depends on who's in charge, what the situation is. The Knicks. Again, they keep changing management. They keep changing coaches, but the owner is the same. So any bad trade, I'm gonna blame Dolan for hiring the people he hired, and it's been going on for years. I mean, when Isaiah Thomas was running, the Knicks as the president and then president and coach, he made some terrible trades. Donnie Walsh made some terrible trades. Phil Jackson, he wanted to trade Porzingis, and he got fired because of it. Well, who was right? Because he was worried about him staying healthy. And who was right? Yep. Jackson was right. So I can say, as I said before, that, he was learning on the job, but he recognized that the KP was susceptible to injury. He had that body. So he's had 3 bad injuries already, I believe. And so, nobody's gone back and said, hey, Phil, we apologize for you wanting to trade him. But again, the Knicks didn't get much for him. They didn't get, they should have been able to. Had Jackson been in charge, he might have been able to get more, but he was fired before that. So I can't really answer your question. The best trade ever. We could get into the Oakley Cartwright trade was pretty damn good. But
Spreewell,
getting Monroe and Lucas after the 69 championship, 70 championship, they got them, and both guys were instrumental in their 73 championship.
I've actually had the Phil Jackson topic to bring up with you. I did read on your Patreon that he left a message.
Whoa. You were one of the guys that read Patreon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how many years ago it was, but I believe I was, yeah.
Yeah, it was 2018. I don't know how many I did. Probably did about 50 of them. Well, you should look up the Oakley one. Look up the Oakley fight ones.
Yeah, I missed that one. When you brought that up, I thought, I don't remember reading that, but I remember Phil Jackson leaving you a message to say, pass on his regards, that you're starting to write again.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we stay in touch. I won't say we're close. We were much closer back in the day when he was coaching the Bulls, and back when he played for the Knicks, I covered him. And we stay in touch now. I definitely wanted to do. I've asked him a couple times to do a podcast with him. I want to stay on it, and I'm going to get him. And he said he would do it, so I just have to stay on him. There are a number of key people that I would love to do podcasts with that, that I know stuff that I could ask them and get good answers. He's one of them. Mark Jackson's another one. Isaiah's another one. I've got a long list.
Well, yeah, I'll be the first one ready to listen or even join. But yeah, with that said, what did you think of that hiring? Dolan's, like I said, is always going for the sexy names rather than just let guys, good at their roles do that. Phil did some nice things, but he ultimately tanked the situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know he didn't have great draft picks. He had a bad coach. He hired Derek Fisher. That was stupid. So now you got a guy who's never coached before with a guy who's never been a decision maker before. And, he had Kerr. And people can say great things about Kerr, blah, blah, blah. But if he had committed to Jackson to come to the Knicks, and then he let him out of it. But if he had insisted he'd take the job, would we have ever heard of Kerr again? He would have been out of there the same way, maybe not as quickly as Fisher, but, he's a great coach with great players. And so Phil made some big mistakes.
Yep. And just a little bit on the current Knicks, the situation. Peter, with Tom Thibodeau, you mentioned that hire. You weren't high on that hiring for the New York Knicks. I felt the Knicks were better off hiring a more developmental coach at the time.
Well, look, I believe that Mark Jackson should have been the Knicks coach 3 times already. Donnie Walsh was ready to hire him for sure. Basically had committed to him. Instead, he went out and interviewed D'Antoni before he left. I know this because I talked to him before he left. He said he didn't like D'Antoni. He didn't like the fact he didn't coach defense. And he came back, and it was like he drank some, what is it that he drank? The
Concoction.
What's that?
Some concoction.
Yeah, it was something. Yeah, something he drank, and he came back and he hired him. So Mark got screwed there, and he was again. It was a team that was in transition. Mark would have been great for that. D'Antoni couldn't put up with it. He didn't like that at all, and wound up quitting. So he quits the Knicks, and he ended up quitting the Lakers. Anyway, Mark should have gotten the job when Fizdale got the job, and he should have gotten the job when Thibodeau got the job. Why would Fizdale quit Memphis, quit it, and they hired him, and he total failure.
For LeBron again.
Well, people think he's going to be the Laker coach. I'm telling you right now, that ain't going to happen. They know that he's there an assistant, but he'll never be there as a head coach. And so Thibodeau comes in now, again hired by his agent. His agent hires him, gives him money, ungodly money, when no one else was bidding on him, and he had just ruined the Minnesota team as a coach and a decision maker. Was hustled out of Chicago because of ruining players, playing hurt players too many minutes. How can you give this guy this job? It's a joke. It's unbelievable how Dolan can make these mistakes. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's the CAA connection, like you said, and William Wesley here. It's a crowded front office, Peter. I've never seen an organization's front office operate the way it currently is constructed. With Leon Rose, the Knicks don't even have him speak.
I can't give you any insight into what's going on in their front office. Again, I'm not paying too much attention to the Knicks. I really am not. I'll watch a game occasionally. I did not watch the Suns game last night. I don't know. I don't know what Wesley's doing, what that guy's doing. I have no idea who's making decisions. It's amazing to me that the media allows this Rose not to talk to the media. It's unbelievable how the media is just disdained by so many franchises now, including the NBA. The NBA, now talking about not allowing the media into the locker room after games. I mean, boy, does the NBA forget what it was like when it was trying to make it. I was there, begging you to cover games, begging you to go on the road with teams, begging you. And now they're making money and they don't give a shit about the media. It's just amazing.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm talking to Mark Berman. He feels, that situation is wrong as well. Not being able to get back in the locker room. And
right.
Segueing into the current NBA, did you feel like front offices should stop listening to players on personnel moves? Like KD pushed for the Nets to sign DeAndre Jordan as part of a package deal, and they pushed them to trade Jarrett Allen, Karis LeVert. And LeBron James pushed the Lakers to trade everything for Westbrook and AD. Would they be in better shape to keep Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, D'Angelo Russell?
Yeah, well, players have always had influence on what was going on. Signing Jordan as part of the package, which is true, that did not cause the Nets to trade those guys you just mentioned. They did that when they got Harden. So, they trade Allen and LeVert and stuff. They didn't. So Jordan never should have been on the team. But, but players have that clout. They do. And they're always going to have that clout. And that's what Michael Jordan used to be so angry at Jerry Krause, because Krause wouldn't listen to him, what he wanted. Because I can't say a lot, but some of the stuff that he recommended did not pan out. So Krause wasn't going to listen to him. And as you can see, Michael Jordan as an owner made an awful lot of mistakes. Too bad Jerry Krause wasn't around to run the front office for him. He might not have made as many mistakes. So nothing you can do about whoever's got the juice, whether it's management. For a long, long time, it was all management, and now it's the players. The players are in charge. What the league does about that, about them deciding that they want out of this team. We're talking Harden now. He wants out of Houston, so he doesn't get in shape. He half steps it, and he does the same thing with the Nets. And the league needs to do something about a guy like that. Guys like that, it just ruins the game. I mean, I can't remember ever rooting against somebody as much as I root against Harden. I hate him. I hate the way he plays. I hate the way he acts. Hate his off the court stuff. Never should have made the top 75. It's a joke. And then what does the league do? The league sends a private plane for him, so that he comes to Cleveland to participate in the top 75. Send a plane for Harden? Come on, man. Meanwhile, here's something you never heard before. Kevin McHale, I saw him. He was staying at the same hotel as me, him and his wife, and he came in whatever night it was. Nobody there to meet him at the airport. Nobody. But they send a plane for Harden. So Kevin McHale came to the hotel. He had no idea what he was supposed to do, where he was supposed to go. He missed the top 75 getting together the night before. So that was Saturday night. He missed that, so he had no idea about it. Where's the NBA? What is the NBA doing? I saw Bob Pettit, 89 years old. He's out in front of the hotel where I was staying. I'm waiting for a car. My daughter's picking me up in her car. He's waiting out in the snow, in the slush, in the ice, in the freezing cold, with a cane, with his wife, trying to get an Uber. Freaking Bob Pettit. Are you kidding me? I mean, there's so many things that I saw during the All-Star game. I don't know what Adam Silver's doing. And he's not paying attention. He's got all these people delegated to do jobs they're not qualified to do. How can you Bob Pettit should have had a car on call, the whole time he was at the All-Star game.
Yeah, it did look like something slapped together last minute. I must be honest. People didn't even know that MJ was going to arrive or not.
Well, I mean, that's MJ. So, yeah. Well, he had things to do, But, I don't think that has anything to do with what I'm saying. Whether he shows or not, a lot of people didn't show up. Another thing at the All-Star game, there was no vaccination requirements. There were none. I mean, nobody ever mentioned that the whole time. But, Stockton showed up unvaccinated. I'm not going to name some other players. I know there were others that were unvaccinated, and the league knew it. They show up, and but the media, I had to have not only vaxxed twice, and had the booster, but then I had to get a test 24 hours before I went to Cleveland. So the media had to do what but the league didn't care. It's so hypocritical, farcical.
Yeah, you've touched on a few things, Peter. I was going to ask you, what are some pet peeves about the NBA at the moment?
No, there you go. I gave you enough right there. I gave you stuff that if I were writing a column, I could have written a hell of a column about the NBA. All the bullshit that went on during the All-Star game. But I'm going to leave it at that because I promised you an hour.
Yeah, appreciate you, Peter, and as always, take care, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me on, Clem. You never explained to me why the hell you care about the Knicks in Australia, but that's your problem.
Yeah. I feel like you wouldn't really appreciate it too much, but Oh, and hey, another reason to get you back. You know?
All right.
Take care.
Take care. Take care
Yeah.
of yourself. Stay healthy.